There's no end in sight to the Wits shutdown. The SRC president has been suspended but remains on campus. And Gauteng Premier Panyaza Lesufi was expected to address the students today. The SRC has requested the Premier to mediate in negotiations going forward. Let's get the latest now from Pule Letshwiti-Jones, who's monitoring the situation at Braamfontein campus. Pule, we believe the SRC had a media briefing of some kind a short while ago. What's the latest from your side?
Definitely, they held a meeting just a while ago, a briefing rather, in which they said that will be ceasing fire for the next 24 hours till the Wits management can come to the table and meet some of their demands, and they will be tabling new demands as well, including the lifting of suspensions on 6 students who were suspended, and of course that includes the president, Aphiwe Mnyamana, as well, Wits SRC president. But they've also said that they want the removal of private security of campus, and of course members of the SAPS to be removed off campus. But before I speak to the Secretary General of the SRC, I'm going to speak to the Youth Socialist Movement just to get reaction after that media briefing. I'm joined by Rais. Thank you very much for speaking to us. We spoke on Sunday. We're back here again. Just a reaction on what's been going on here on campus.
I mean, on Wits campus, it's been relatively quiet, if we're honest. Wits has taken the academic program online in response to the shutdown. The SRC has declared this ceasefire, in effect for the next 24 hours, but we are now seeing and I mean, there are immediate issues, inarguably the issues of suspension, demilitarization, but the issues that started this to begin with, the issues of financial exclusion and accommodation are taking a backseat. And just in response to, the fact that this is a national crisis, at the moment at the University of Cape Town, the SRC is shutting their campus down, shutting down physical classes, taking direct action. And so, I mean, when we look at this, like, for example, NSFAS, it's impractical to expect the university to pick up the shortfall from NSFAS when the state has a far greater capacity to do so. And I think this is something that is missing from these protests, is looking towards the state. And of course, it is very convenient for the youth wing of the ruling party to not look towards the state, to not look towards the party as extending the critique, because NSFAS, the state should be putting more towards that budget. And we know that the state can spend tremendous amounts of money when it comes to bailing out, fossil fuel corporations, when it comes to bailing out SAA, for example. Yeah. And student debt is sitting above 16 billion rand in this country, and it's a systemic issue getting worse. We're not going to solve it by any stopgap solutions. And I think we do need to take that into consideration when we put this all into perspective, that this is part of a continuing student movement that began even before fees must fall.
What's your take on the fact that the Gauteng Premier did try to meet the institution, but we're told that the Wits management couldn't come to the table to meet him in terms of mediating and paving a way forward?
This is part of a continuing trend of arrogance from, we had it with Adam Habib as our Vice-Chancellor and now under Zeblan Vilakazi. And, in 2021, when the student debt protest happened, it was even a joke that do we even have a Vice-Chancellor, because he effectively hid from us for a long time. So this is not surprising from the institution at all. This is a continuing trend of arrogance that, and I think it does show that the university is not willing to negotiate in good faith to actually address the issue. They're trying to suppress it, they're trying to suffocate it, take away, by taking the classes online, and of course by bringing in private security and the police to brutalize any attempt to start any real protest action on campus.
As the Socialist Youth Movement, what's the call? We now hear that, some of these students here were harassed and sexually harassed as well by some of the private security. Those are allegations that have been raised by the SRC, but also they're calling for the lifting of the suspensions and the removal of the private security and members of the SAPS. Are you also going with the call?
Yeah, no, we are 100% in agreement on that. We take the stance as the Socialist Youth Movement that the police is the brutal arm of the capitalist state. It has no place on our campus. 2 days from now, 10th of March, would be the 2-year anniversary of the murder of Mtokozisi Ntumba by the SAPS in the streets of Braamfontein, and this is the same bloodthirsty police force they send onto our campuses. And the bouncers as well. Initially, the idea was to establish the Wits Protection Force or whatever as a replacement for the private security, and yet we've seen now private security deployed in addition to the Wits force. And this militarization is something, I mean, the private security was throwing rocks into a crowd when the Nehawu workers were gathered here earlier in last week Friday. And so we definitely echo the demands for the lifting of the suspensions. This is a bullying tactic. This is a scare tactic that we've seen used before. And so we do share these demands with the SRC, but we do stress that it's important for us to not lose touch with the broader picture.
Rais, thank you very much. Of course, that's Rais from the Socialist Youth Movement who just spoke to us right now. And I'm going to be joined by the SRC Secretary General Tiamo Chuma. Tiamo, thank you very much for joining us. Of course, now we hear these calls from other organizations as well. We've seen the message of support from the University of Zimbabwe. Just as it is, you said you're ceasing fire for the next 24 hours. Are you hoping that the university can come to the table and speak to you guys and meet the new demands as well?
Sure. So when we spoke to management yesterday, they stated that, guys, just cease fire, even if it's just for a day, and then we can come to the table. So whilst you guys are busy protesting, singing, chanting, collapsing classes and whatsoever, we are not going to come to the table. So the ceasing fire is ceasing fire until the VC comes down to meet us. And if the conditions are still unfavorable, we go back to the ground.
And then, where is the president? We were told he was not allowed on campus because he was suspended. Where is he right now? Have you been in communication with him?
Sure. As I stated in the media briefing that I thought he was missing, he's actually outside by the Yale Road. So if you do want to interview him, he is outside. So he's not missing. He just can't get on campus due to his suspension.
Right. And the failure to meet the new demands within the space of 24 hours, what does that mean from you guys' side as well?
So we take mandate from the ground. So after our meeting with the VC, hopefully he will come to the ground. But after our meeting with him, we are going to take those concessions maybe we might have gotten or might not have gotten to the ground, and the ground will mandate us on how to move.
And you were saying that there's new demands, of course. Do you believe that these new demands can be realistically met by the institution within the space of 24 hours?
I'm not sure when you say new demands, because all the demands were released by us and by the institution as well, and most of them were met. It's just everyone should register, because they stated that it's just a few students who haven't registered, so all those students must just register, they can absolve them. And it's the NSFAS issue which we are both tackling, and the accommodation issues. So it's just 3 issues. And obviously the suspension of the president. They must suspend the president and other SRC members and our subcommittee members as well, because we've ceased fire from our end. I think you can see that it's a peaceful day on campus. So we're just waiting for the Vice-Chancellor to come down and meet us. But in him coming down to meet us, we don't want bouncers, we don't want police on campus anymore. We just don't want those people anymore on campus. So yeah.
Just your reaction, maybe lastly, on the university not wanting to meet the Premier as well, or not availing themselves for that meeting. How did you take it as the SRC?
Hey, that process was a mediation process. Yeah. So we took it as if like they're arrogant, even though the Premier is coming, even though NSFAS is on the table, even though the Department of Higher Education, even after we insulted them countless times, they're like, guys, let's talk. The university is still like, nope, we don't want to talk to you guys. So I think that was a bit arrogant from the side of the Vice-Chancellor and the senior executive team to not want to come to the table, because it shows that they were negotiating in bad faith and they were not genuine.
Thank you very much. That's Tiamo Chuma, who is the Secretary General of the Wits SRC, saying that they're still waiting for the university to come to the table and, of course, negotiate with them. And also they're hoping that the Premier and officials from the National Student Financial Aid Scheme and, of course, the Department of Higher Education officials can come to the table with the university's Vice-Chancellor, Professor Zablon Vilagazi, also being available. We're still waiting to see whether that will take place, but the developing story for now is that the SRC has decided to cease fire for now. They'll give it a period of about 24 hours before they can decide on their next step forward if the institution does not meet their demands.
Okay, Pule Letshwiti-Jones with the latest from Wits University, reporting to us live there from Braamfontein. He'll continue to keep an eye on developments there.